From the moment my sister was born, I felt the shift, a seismic change in the atmosphere of our home. I stood in the doorway of my parents' bedroom, my heart racing as I peeked through the crack. There she was, a tiny bundle swathed in pink, cradled gently in my mother's arms. "Look at her beautiful cheeks," my mother cooed, her voice a symphony of adoration. "She's going to be the light of our lives." I pressed my hands against the cool wood of the door, the texture digging into my palms. I felt cold, like I had stepped outside in winter without a coat. "What about me?" I whispered to no one, searching for answers in an empty hallway, year after year. The pattern only solidified my feelings of invisibility. Birthdays rolled around like clockwork, the same time of year when I held my breath, gripping my store-bought cake with a mixture of anticipation and dread. My sister's parties resembled extravagant productions, complete with balloon arches and party favors that probably cost as much as my allowance for an entire year. Just last week, I had overheard my mother excitedly discussing my sister's upcoming 12th birthday party with the neighbors. "We're spending at least $5,000 this time," my mother had said, her eyes shining. I felt a sharp pang in my chest, as if I had just swallowed glass. Sitting on the couch during family gatherings, my mind often flickered back to my own birthdays as I watched my sister's face light up at the sight of her friends. "I love this present. Thank you, Mommy." She clutched a shiny new tablet, and the squeals of delight cascaded around me. I forced a smile, a thin veneer of happiness that shattered whenever I caught the flicker of excitement flashing across her eyes. As I blew out the candles on my cake, I could almost hear the sigh of relief in my mother's voice, the soft murmur, "At least it's over." It was as if my birthday was merely a footnote to my sister's grand narrative of joy. "Your turn next. You better do something special for your birthday," my brother teased, oblivious to the lump forming in my throat. "You know Mom and Dad only have enough love for one party a year." My heart sank. "Come on, you all know I'm not a big deal," I replied, trying to mask my hurt with sarcasm. "Just keep shoving your brother's leftovers at me." The laughter that followed felt like knives, sharp and cutting, their echoes bouncing around the room. I felt betrayed without even knowing why. Was it the joking? Or perhaps the stark contrast being drawn against my sister's endless accolades? In the months following my sister's parties, I became increasingly aware of her aura. My parents treated her like a precious gem, polishing and displaying her for all to see, while I was the rough stone tucked away in a drawer, waiting for someone to notice me. I sighed deeply, clutching the chipped edge of a mug, the ceramic cool against my skin. "You should be like your sister," my father said one evening, his gaze fixed on my sister who was lost in a storybook. Those words sliced through me. I bit my lip, fighting the tears that threatened to spill as embarrassment swirled deep inside. I felt like a shadow, caught between reality and an unending cycle of unworthiness. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" my mother asked, her tone clipped as she noticed my blank stare. "She's going to excel in school. We've already signed her up for tutoring." All I could do was say, "Sure, Mom." My voice cracked under the weight of how deeply I resented them both. My sister's mere presence was a gaping hole that seemed to suck all the light from the room. And as I witnessed their unwavering support for her $300 dresses picked from the latest catalog, the newest phone every year, I wondered if I would ever have a moment worth celebrating. Forgive me, but I quietly soothed my own wounds with self-isolation, choosing to hide behind the shadows that were drawn towards my sister, clinging to the edges of the conversations yet too afraid to interrupt. Every compliment my sister received served only to reinforce the gnawing belief entrenched within me. I was always going to be the second choice, a mere afterthought in the family's narrative. Even simple acknowledgments of my accomplishments felt muted. "Oh, good job on your project," my mother would say absent-mindedly, as her gaze drifted toward my sister. I hated that hollow feeling of being invisible. It was in those moments, compounded like 1,000 cuts, that I began to dream of the day I would reclaim what had been taken from me, years of my life spent in her shadow, the forgotten daughter struggling for attention. "Mom, can we go to the park?" my sister asked, her voice a cascade of melodic hope. She flashed a smile that could light up the darkest winters. My father, of course, didn't hesitate. "Sure, sweetheart, we can grab you ice cream too." I felt my pulse quicken. "What about me?" I said, my voice stilling in the sudden rush of air as silence filled the room. I could feel the weight of their eyes fall upon me there like a dagger hidden in a bouquet of flowers. "You can stay and read," my mother replied coolly, as if that encompassed everything I would need. "Figures," I muttered, my nails digging into my palms until I felt like I could explode. "It would ruin your perfect day with your precious daughter if I showed up." My sister blinked, confusion etched on her youthful face. The world around me faded, the laughter of my brother and the excitement of my sister felt distant, as an overwhelming sense of injustice froze the air. My fists clenched tightly. I never truly wanted to betray them, yet here I was, the daughter who would remind them of what they lost, the daughter who wouldn't stay invisible. I am not a charity case, I thought. They will see me. But for now, I couldn't bear it. I felt my heart beat wildly with the realization that the time was coming for me to reclaim a portion of my story, the one that had remained a footnote for far too long. The door slammed shut as I stormed away from the family room, shoving away the thoughts of being an afterthought. I prepared. I would gather my strength, but they would soon discover just how much power explosive silence can wield, how deep betrayal can cut. As I stormed into my room, the tears finally blurred my vision. They would not see me, but soon they would wish they had. My heart raced as I felt a simmering vengeance stir. What had once been a quiet ache was now boiling over, determined to reshape the narrative they had built around me. Did they expect to carry on, turning a blind eye to the daughter who had worn the shadows like a cloak? I wouldn't let it end like this. With clenched teeth and burning resolve, I knew that the next chapter was bound to be explosive. The moment I stepped into my parents' house, the familiar silence washed over me like cold water. It settled over my shoulders, heavy and suffocating, reminding me, yet again, of my place in this family. My sister's laugh echoed down the hallway as I made my way through the door, a sound so bright and carefree that it made my stomach twist. This was her domain now. This was her victory. As I entered the living room, my sister stood there like a crowned queen, her brand-new luxury car parked proudly outside the large window. The sunlight gleamed off its immaculate surface, making it look like it belonged in a showroom rather than my parents' driveway. My mother was beside her, practically bouncing on her heels, her face lit up with that unmistakable motherly pride I had longed for myself. "Look at it. Isn't it stunning?" my sister said, her voice dripping with smugness. "Only $70,000. Can you believe Mom and Dad went all out for my 16th birthday? Best gift ever." I shifted awkwardly, trying to hide the worn-out jeans I wore, the borrowed blouse clinging to me like a shadow. I felt my heart sink, but I forced a smile as I stepped further into the room. "It's beautiful," I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. "Beautiful, it's breathtaking. And just wait until you see the new Louis Vuitton bag I got yesterday. It matches perfectly." She twirled around, her designer dress flowing dramatically, causing my mother's eyes to sparkle with admiration. "You should see the collection I'm building. High fashion is all the rage, you know." "Really, dear?" my mother asked, her voice saturated with excitement. "You should take your sister shopping with you. She could use a little help with her wardrobe." A knot twisted in my stomach at the declaration. I knew what that meant. A simple invitation to tag along would quickly build into another lesson in my inferiority. "Oh, I am fine, really," I stammered, but as I spoke, I could feel my mother's gaze flicker over me, filled with sympathy mixed with an unspoken dismissal. The scent of fresh-baked cookies wafted through the air, but it couldn't mask the bitterness that rose in my throat. "You're always fine," my sister said, her voice laced with mock sweetness. "But a little fashion advice wouldn't hurt, right? You know how to get discounts, but for things like these," she waved her hand in the air dramatically, "you might want to go full price." I felt my face flush in humiliation, but I couldn't let her see how deeply it all penetrated. I forced a laugh. "Right, wouldn't want to overdo it and look like I make money, huh? Who would ever think that?" My sister shot back, her eyes gleaming with triumph as she shot me a pointed look. The laughter bubbled from her lips, but it felt invasive, like a knife twisting in an open wound. Enough of this. My father entered the room, his presence a heavy anchor that disrupted the flow of my sister's taunts. "Mia, have you seen the new changes I made to the backyard? I put in that fountain we talked about." He turned to my sister, as if switching his attention from me was the most natural thing in the world. "And how are your plans for that May trip to Italy shaping up?" I felt my heart pound in my chest. My father had strayed from the pitiful attention focused on my sister. A part of me wanted to seize the moment, to remind him of my own dreams that sat crushed beneath the weight of my sister's accomplishments. But as I opened my mouth, I halted. The words slipped away like sand between my fingers. Each time I tried to voice my thoughts, I felt the weight of dismissal. All my family ever cared about was her. "Italy sounds amazing," I said softly, my voice catching in my throat. "I hope you have fun." My mother turned back to me, the excitement in her eyes dimmed. "Well, I'm sure you can find something fun to do while we are away." Her voice dripped with a strange mixture of pity and hope. I could feel my hands start to shake. a violent fight brewing inside me against the tidal wave of neglect that crashed over me every time I visited. "I'll just stay home," I said, a strange defiance rising in my chest. "I suppose someone has to take care of the house while you all are busy with your adventure." "Oh, come on now," my mother scoffed, waving her hand dismissively. "Don't be so dramatic. You could use a break from your city life." Dramatic? I could not contain the sharp edge in my voice any longer. "I'm not being dramatic. I'm just tired of being the fallback option in this family." The room fell silent, a thick tension filling the air as everyone stared at me in shock. My sister's smug grin faltered, replaced by an expression of mingled surprise and glee, as if I had just performed a bold act of treason against the throne. "Wow, somebody woke up on the wrong side of the bed," my sister retorted, the fake sweetness dripping from her lips like poison. "You sound almost like you want a taste of the good life, too." But alas, not everyone can be a favorite. My cheeks burned, but I found the strength to keep my gaze locked on her, my heart racing as a dark resolve simmered down deep within me. I couldn't let her win. The sound of my father clearing his throat cut through the silence, a desperate attempt to restore calm to the chaos I had inadvertently unleashed. "Mia just, no," the flare of anger lashed out before I could think, my voice cracking a little but still an undertone of steady determination. "I'm tired of being ignored. It's always my sister's accomplishments over anything I do. I'm standing right here and the neglect feels like a weight that is crushing me." "No one's ignoring you," my mother said, but her eyes darted away, showing the cracks in her conviction. "You have your own strengths, dear." "Strengths?" I shot back, my words cutting through the air like a knife. "Clearly, they're not enough to be seen." I could see my sister's eyes shine with malicious glee, thrilled at the chaos she had sparked. "Maybe if you put in a little effort," my mother started, but the words were like ashes in my mouth. "Effort? Or maybe if I were just like her," I blurted out, tears welling up in my eyes. "Maybe then I would be more valued than just a tool to be overlooked." The silence was suffocating, the intensity of my words echoing around the room. My father's brow furrowed in concern, while my sister's cruel smile twisted into something darker. Then, without another word, I turned on my heel and stormed out of the room, my heart pounding like a drum in my ears. As I threw open the front door, I felt the weight of the world push against me, but in that moment, it felt liberating to walk away. As I stepped outside, I vowed that if I was going to be seen as the lesser, I would ensure the outcomes of my sister's triumphs wouldn't come without consequence. Each footstep away felt like I was reclaiming my power, a slow-burning resolve igniting within me. The driveway stretched before me, my sister's luxurious car shining in the sun, a stark reminder of the battle I had yet to win. But this was just the beginning. I could feel the fire of revenge simmering quietly beneath the surface. I had to find a way to turn the tables, to ensure that the next family gathering would not be marked by my resentment, but rather my rise. The weight of my unearthed determination cut like a blade through the tension of our home, marking the start of something new. Little did my family know, I was ready to play my own game now the air felt thick and heavy as I sat at the edge of the pool, my feet dangling into the shimmering water while sounds of laughter and splashes filled the air around me. It was supposed to be a fun, relaxing family vacation, but the picturesque backdrop of the resort contrasted sharply with the turmoil that swirled inside me. The scent of sunscreen mixed with the faint aroma of grilled burgers wafted in from the nearby barbecue. I could hear the distant humming of children playing, yet my world felt muted, isolated from the joyous noise. I shifted on my lounge chair, trying to enjoy the sunshine warming my skin, but the sight of my sister frolicking in the water with our parents chipped away at my resolve. Every splash and giggle seemed to mock me, each cheerful note amplifying the dissonance I felt in my heart. I wrapped my arms around my knees, burying my face in them, wishing I could push the world away. Suddenly, the sound of my mother's voice drifted over from the shaded patio area, drawing my attention. The casual tone she used was laced with an undertone of seriousness that made my heart race. "You know, we could easily help with her tuition," my mother said, her words filling the air as if they were designed to break me. "Absolutely. It's important to invest in her future," my father replied, his voice laden with approval. "She deserves it, we can manage it." The knot in my stomach tightened, disgust settling over me like a cold shadow. I recognized the tone in their voices, the familiar blend of affection and authority that they thought was so endearing. But today, their choice of words landed heavily in the pit of my chest, like a boulder rolling down a steep cliff, gathering speed and weight as it crashed into me. From my vantage point, I could see my sister, shimmering in a bright blue swimsuit, her laughter echoing in the air. "Mom, Dad, look at me," she called out, her excitement infectious. My mother's eyes lit up, and my father laughed heartily, his booming voice mingling with hers, enveloping her in a cocoon of support I could not break through. Then my mother continued. "For you, sweetheart, we can cover all the expenses. It is really what you deserve." Her words were honeyed, sweet yet cloying, and it felt like they were sticking to me, suffocating any chance of feeling special myself. "And what about me?" I muttered quietly to myself, feeling resentful, a heat creeping up my neck and flushing my cheeks. But I couldn't keep my voice hidden. Just loud enough for my mother to overhear, I called out, "What about my college? Didn't I deserve some support too?" The laughter died instantly. My parents turned towards me, and my insides twisted with nerves. My mother's eyes widened, clearly taken aback by my intrusion. "Mia, we were just what?" I snapped, anger boiling over. The years of feeling forgotten surged forward like a tidal wave, each word ringing louder in my ears. "Just planning your favorite daughter's future, while I am left digging for scholarships. Is that how this family works?" "It is not like that," my father said, a hint of irritation in his tone, yet I saw the way he went pale, realizing how his plans had unraveled at my words. "We're just trying to give her the best chance." "And what chance do I get?" I shot back, pain lacing through every word. "You assume I can just fend for myself, find scholarships like it is easy. What if I cannot? What if I need your help, your support? Doesn't that matter to you?" Every question felt like a knife digging deeper into my soul. My own insecurities rolled into the surface, erupting in front of everyone. Their dismissful glance hammered home their indifference, and each second stretched, an eternity where every breath could be a new confession of heartbreak. My sister, still jubilant in her bubble of optimism, called out again to our parents, pulling their attention back to her. "Come on, join me," she exclaimed, not even noticing the cracks forming in our family. It was as if I had vanished completely, reduced to a whisper in the background compared to her loud, vivacious presence. "See, love, we'll talk about college for you later," my mother said, brushing off my outburst with a tone that felt condescending. "It's important to focus on your sister right now." My heart plummeted, fists clenching at my sides, rage bubbling up like lava. I could feel every ounce of neglect pouring over me, leaving me feeling small and insignificant. Right then, I recognized how this family dynamic was like a well-rehearsed play where I did not belong in a lead role. It was an invisible script that dictated my worth based on the financial favors awarded to my sister. "You chose her over me," I said, my voice cracking, uncertainty shadowing my fury. "That is not true," my father barked, his frustration apparent. "You are just being dramatic." But it was too late. Their words hung in the air like thick fog, suffocating me more than the heat of the sun. I stood up abruptly, feeling the warm tiles scorch my feet as I stepped away from the pool, the sound of their chatter fading into a backdrop of disappointment. I could not look at them anymore. My sister continued to splash and giggle, blissfully unaware of the fracture that had just appeared. With each step away from the pool, the bitterness coiling in my throat turned into resolve. "No more," I whispered to myself, my chest tightening. I could not let this be how my story ended. My narrative needed to be reclaimed. No longer hidden behind the wall of indifference, I had reached my breaking point, and I intended to do something about it. As I stormed through the sliding glass doors of our rented vacation home, I glanced back at my family. They were still absorbed in their little world of joy, my sister positioned as the shining star. I shook my head in disbelief, anger simmering as I realized I had to take back control. My hands were shaking, my heart thumping, but a flicker of empowerment ignited within me. This is not over, I thought, determination flooding my mind. But just as I turned into the house, I caught sight of the reflection of my mother through a window, her brow furrowing as she raised a hand to her forehead, perhaps us realizing how far apart we had drifted. I could feel the heat of that unsaid confrontation hanging in the air, a bitter aftertaste that would not easily be forgot. In that moment, I knew it was the beginning of something much bigger than a simple vacation. It was the start of a reckoning, a journey to unearth the truth behind this facade of a perfect family before the walls I had built completely crumbled around me. Change is coming, I thought fiercely, feeling the weight of my own rage and heartbreak transform into something powerful. The first seeds of my plan began to root themselves deep within me, a promise to reclaim what had been taken without a thought, and make sure they all understood how it felt to be left behind on the crisp Thanksgiving morning. I could feel the electric tension in the air long before I arrived at my parents' house. The scent of roasted turkey and pumpkin pie wafted through the open kitchen window as I parked my brand new luxury car at the curb. Deep blue paint sparkled in the sunlight, a stark contrast against the dull colors of the neighborhood. It felt surreal to slip out of the driver's seat, the weight of my transformation heavy yet liberating. I was no longer the invisible daughter. As I stepped out in my designer attire, a fitted blazer and tailored trousers that hugged my silhouette perfectly, I felt untouchable. My heart raced as I approached the front door, and I could already envision the look on my sister's face when she saw me. I knocked gently, but deep down I longed for a grand entrance. My fingers fidgeted nervously with the hem of my pants. What would my mother think? Would she be proud? Or would she feel the sting of favoritism once again? Still, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the car window, my confidence soaring. This was my moment. When the door swung open, I was greeted by my father's warm smile, instantly melting away some of my anxiety. "Happy Thanksgiving," he exclaimed, stepping aside to let me in. As I crossed the threshold, the familiar cacophony of laughter and chatter enveloped me, reminding me of family gatherings past, where I had often felt overlooked and unseen. "Look who it is," my mother chimed in, coming into view with her apron still on. "Our little overachiever." She moved towards me with a swift embrace, her familiar scent of cinnamon and vanilla wrapping around me. "We are so glad you came." I could sense her pride, yet there was an underlying current of tension. Did she know what I was going to reveal? "Thanks, Mom," I replied, forcing a smile. But as I pulled away, I caught sight of my sister. There she was in a sleek emerald dress that clung to her curves, a statement piece that she must have chosen for no other reason than to steal the spotlight. Her eyes narrowed when they landed on me, and for a moment, the festive atmosphere dimmed like a switch being flipped. "Wow, look at you," she said, her tone dripping with mockery. "Did you just step out of a magazine or something?" I felt my chest tighten but pushed through. "I guess I wanted to make an impression this year," I said, a smirk creeping onto my face as I gestured towards my sleek vehicle outside. "Nice car, right? Just got it." Her expression froze for a moment, before morphing into one of feigned indifference. "Oh, is that yours? Cute." But I could see the envy hidden behind her words, the way her hands curled tightly around the edge of the dining table as if it were the only thing keeping her steady. "Very cute," our brother chimed in, chuckling as he strolled by with a plate piled high with food. My brother had a knack for lightening the mood, but even he sensed the unsaid competition brewing between us. "Let's all focus on the food." "It's Thanksgiving," my father interjected, trying to diffuse the tension as he ushered us towards the dining room. The table was lavishly decorated, brimming with dishes prepared with love, yet somehow, I felt a knot growing in my stomach. This was going to be the Thanksgiving my family never forgot. Seated around the table, the small talk began, but I was hyper-aware of my sister's glaring gaze fixed on me. She seemed to scrutinize every detail of my outfit, my demeanor, the subtle confidence I wore like armor. "So, how's the job going?" she finally demanded, her fork poised midair, as if she were preparing to stab at the truth. I leaned back in my chair, exhilaration bubbling beneath the surface. "Pretty great, actually. I've been promoted to creative director at the marketing firm. Apparently, my skills are worth $100,000 a year." The words slipped effortlessly off my tongue, as if the entire journey of transformation, overcoming feeling diminished and unseen, had been leading to this moment. Silence enveloped the room. My mother's eyes widened in surprise while my father's mouth formed a small O of astonishment. But it was my sister's face I was most interested in. She went pale, the color draining from her cheeks. "Excuse me," she stuttered, her grip tightening around her silverware. "Yeah, I've been working really hard," I continued, the spotlight finally on me. "It's amazing how far you can come when you stop letting others dictate your worth." "You had help," my sister snapped, her voice cracking slightly. "Everyone knows you only got that job because of who you knew. It's unfair." "Unfair, huh? Like how you mocked me for being the invisible one for years. You thought I wouldn't amount to anything," I shot back, frustration boiling over. "You cut me off. You refused to accept me for who I was while you basked in all the attention. But look at me now. I demanded respect and got what I deserved." The air was thick with tension, each breath feeling heavier than the last. My mother looked as if she might burst into tears. "Can we please just enjoy this meal?" she begged, glancing nervously between us. But my sister wasn't finished. "You think this makes you better than me, just because you have a fancy job and a car. It won't change who you are on the inside," she shot back, her voice rising, punctuating the air with bitterness. "It's not about being better," I replied, feeling the heat rise in my cheeks. "It's about finally stepping into my worth and making myself known, while you acted like it was a crime to succeed." My sister's eyes flashed with hurt, and for a moment, I saw the shadow of the sister I used to adore. But this new version wasn't ready for reconciliation. She was angry, deeply rooted in her own insecurities. You think I'm the favorite just because they give me the spotlight. You're wrong. Their choices are unfair to both of us. For the first time that day, I allowed myself to relax a little. Her reaction revealed that, beneath the bravado, she felt threatened. I wondered if part of her success was only rooted in our parents' favoritism and not her own efforts. The clinking of silverware resumed, the tension lingering like stale air in a tightly sealed room. Just as the meal began to flow again, a silence hung between us after my sister's last words, as if we all shared a collective understanding that nothing would be the same again. Each bite tasted like betrayal and the looming shadows of our family's ugly truths. As the plates emptied and my sister's simmering resentment boiled beneath the surface, a sudden, unexpected sound shattered the moment. The doorbell rang, echoing ominously throughout the house. My heart raced as eyes turned toward the door. Who could it be? My sister shot me a look that mixed anger with an unmistakable edge of fear. Would the arrival of this stranger further unravel the fabric of our already tense Thanksgiving? The question hung in the air like a suspenseful cliffhanger. Just moments before, I felt triumphant, but now uncertainty seeped back in, wrapping around my chest, suffocating as the door creaked open. I knew then that whatever awaited us might change everything once more. The dinner table felt electric, the atmosphere so thick with tension I could almost taste it. The clinking of forks against plates was a rhythmic reminder of how stiffly my family sat around me. My mother's anxious fingers twisted the linen napkin, while my father's eyes darted between me and my sister, as if he were trying to gauge which way the wind was blowing. I could almost hear the unasked questions in his mind. Was I finally going to get my moment, or was this going to end in another family disaster? It was a night that had been building for years, the resentment simmering just below the surface, and now it was time for my truth. I want to share something, I started, my voice calm but firm. I could feel my heart hammering in my chest, but I pressed forward. You know, there was a time when I was just the overlooked daughter, the one who faded into the background like a shadow. I paused, watching my sister's face. It went pale as I introduced the elephant in the room. When I decided to follow my passion for design, no one took me seriously. You all chose to support my sister instead, cheering her on as she climbed her way to the top, while I sat by, waiting for scraps of attention. But I turned that neglect into a driving force. My sister's eyes narrowed, the once bright sparkle dimming into something darker. No longer did they reflect pride or excitement, instead, jealousy flashed in those familiar depths. You act like it was easy for me too, she snapped, her voice sharper than I'd ever heard it. You don't know what it took for me. But she wasn't giving me the satisfaction of response. I held her gaze with unwavering confidence, feeling a subtle thrill dance through me like electricity. My path led me to become a creative director, I continued, letting each word build the tension around the table. At my firm, I've even worked on multi-million-dollar campaigns that have transformed brands worth millions. Just to think of that time, I barely had the courage to pitch ideas while you basked in the limelight. I let the statement hang in the air, watching my parents squirm at the table, guilt etched across their faces. My father cleared his throat, his voice breaking the silence. That's impressive, truly. But we always, he started, probably wanting to defend his choices, to justify the favoritism my sister had always represented. But I couldn't allow that. I had waited too long to reclaim my narrative. Or maybe you were just too busy focusing on her to notice I was drowning, I interrupted, a tremor of bitterness edging into my voice. Did you ever think I could be more than just the backdrop to her achievements? You didn't even see me. But here I am now, thriving in a field I love. With every word, I sensed the tension building. My mother shifted in her seat, her expression torn between pride for my success and guilt for the years of neglect I had suffered. The aroma of the home-cooked meal grew faint against the weight of my words, the scent of roast chicken and fragrant herbs turning stale in the air. I wish you could see how hard it was for me, my sister said, voice trembling slightly. I could see her hands shaking ever so slightly, betraying her calm facade. You think you just had it so much worse. You don't know what it's like to be in my shadow. Oh, but I do know what it's like, I said, leaning forward, my voice lowering to a near whisper. Every birthday, every family gathering, all the praise I had to hear directed at you. The scholarships, the special treatment, the praise. Mom and Dad chose you every time, and it was like I was invisible, but I'm not anymore, which must sting. There it was, the bait for which I'd been waiting. My sister's face went rigid and her eyes flickered with something akin to fury. You should be thankful I had to fight your battles for you. I had to keep mom and dad from just forgetting about you entirely. You're welcome. She leaned back, crossing her arms, an act of defiance, but it felt weak. Thankful. I echoed, letting a sarcastic chuckle slip through my lips. You think I should be grateful that I was cast aside so you could shine? I have no debts to repay. My success is mine, not yours. It doesn't belong in anyone's shadow. My voice grew louder, resonating against the walls of our dining room. The silence that followed was almost deafening. My mother looked ready to dissolve into tears, her eyes glistening with unshed emotion. Meanwhile, my father's expression morphed into a mix of disbelief and regret, as if he suddenly realized the extent of the damage done. We never intended to hurt you, he finally blurted out, the remorse heavy in his tone but not enough to quell the resentment simmering in me. You may not have intended it, but intentions don't matter when actions speak louder, I said, my heart racing with the recognition of victory washing over me. I've poured my heart and soul into making something of myself, and you missed that journey completely, and now here I stand, standing victorious while you grapple with your guilt. I think it is you who should be grappling, my sister spat. Her voice cracked, the facade breaking. This whole thing is just you trying to prove you're better to show off. What's wrong with showing off a little? I asked, my chest tightening as I stared her down. If you had lived within the shadows like I did, you'd understand the weight of that success, the taste of triumph that comes when finally rising above being the overlooked one. Before she could respond, a sudden hush fell over the table, the air thick with unspoken words and raw emotions. I could feel the weight of my parents' glares, pure confusion etched on their faces, but I had waited too long to hold back. I wanted them to see me, the daughter they had neglected their entire lives, emerging like a true phoenix from the ashes. As I finally embraced the moment, a low rumble of tension engulfed the dinner table, a verification of my rebirth. The atmosphere felt tight as I stood to leave, the chair scraping against the floor, a sound that rang like a warning bell signaling this was only just the beginning. Living my truth is the sweetest revenge I could ever wish upon you, I said, feeling empowered as I walked away from the dining room, leaving behind stunned silence. As I reached for the door, I could hear my sister's voice behind me, cracking and trembling in disbelief. What do you think will happen now? She asked, a hint of panic threading through her words. But I didn't look back. Instead, I stepped through the door, leaving unanswered questions and tension hanging in the air, ready to face whatever came next in this unfolding drama. Voice. Did you ever think I could be more than just the backdrop to her achievements? You didn't even see me. But here I am now, thriving in a field I love. With every word, I sensed the tension building. My mother shifted in her seat, her expression torn between pride for my success and guilt for the years of neglect I had suffered. The aroma of the home-cooked meal grew faint against the weight of my words, the scent of roast chicken and fragrant herbs turning stale in the air. I wish you could see how hard it was for me, my sister said, voice trembling slightly. I could see her hands shaking ever so slightly, betraying her calm facade. You think you just had it so much worse. You don't know what it's like to be in my shadow. Oh, but I do know what it's like, I said, leaning forward, my voice lowering to a near whisper. Every birthday, every family gathering, all the praise I had to hear directed at you. The scholarships, the special treatment, the praise. Mom and Dad chose you every time, and it was like I was invisible, but I'm not anymore, which must sting. There it was, the bait for which I'd been waiting. My sister's face went rigid and her eyes flickered with something akin to fury. You should be thankful I had to fight your battles for you. I had to keep mom and dad from just forgetting about you entirely. You're welcome. She leaned back, crossing her arms, an act of defiance, but it felt weak. Thankful. I echoed, letting a sarcastic chuckle slip through my lips. You think I should be grateful that I was cast aside so you could shine? I have no debts to repay. My success is mine, not yours. It doesn't belong in anyone's shadow. My voice grew louder, resonating against the walls of our dining room. The silence that followed was almost deafening. My mother looked ready to dissolve into tears, her eyes glistening with unshed emotion. Meanwhile, my father's expression morphed into a mix of disbelief and regret, as if he suddenly realized the extent of the damage done. We never intended to hurt you, he finally blurted out, the remorse heavy in his tone but not enough to quell the resentment simmering in me. You may not have intended it, but intentions don't matter when actions speak louder, I said, my heart racing with the recognition of victory washing over me. I've poured my heart and soul into making something of myself, and you missed that journey completely, And now here I stand, standing victorious while you grapple with your guilt. I think it is you who should be grappling, my sister spat. Her voice cracked, the facade breaking. This whole thing is just you trying to prove you're better to show off. What's wrong with showing off a little? I asked, my chest tightening as I stared her down. If you had lived within the shadows like I did, you'd understand the weight of that success, the taste of triumph that comes when finally rising above being the overlooked one. Before she could respond, a sudden hush fell over the table, the air thick with unspoken words and raw emotions. I could feel the weight of my parents' glares, pure confusion etched on their faces, but I had waited too long to hold back. I wanted them to see me, the daughter they had neglected their entire lives, emerging like a true phoenix from the ashes. As I finally embraced the moment, a low rumble of tension engulfed the dinner table, a verification of my rebirth. The atmosphere felt tight as I stood to leave, the chair scraping against the floor, a sound that rang like a warning bell signaling this was only just the beginning. Living my truth is the sweetest revenge I could ever wish upon you, I said, feeling empowered as I walked away from the dining room, leaving behind stunned silence. As I reached for the door, I could hear my sister's voice behind me, cracking and trembling in disbelief. What do you think will happen now? She asked, a hint of panic threading through her words. But I didn't look back. Instead, I stepped through the door, leaving unanswered questions and tension hanging in the air, ready to face whatever came next in this unfolding drama.